Is it bad that the main reason why I picked this was because I wanted to dress my little sim self up like a fairy? That, and it's been a while since I did a high fantasy story. I read another series by Holly Black before, Tithe. I don't really have a lot of memories of it. Mainly your standard fairy politics and trickery, so business as usual, really. From what I'm seeing of the reviews of Cruel Prince, this book is probably going to be quite mid as far as fairy stuff goes. Honestly, I feel like if people read more, they'd be less likely to fall for mid books about subjects that other authors have done to death before, and done so much better. Ugh. Even before we begin, I know that I'm going to have quite a bad time of it because this is the dedication for Cassandra Clare, who was finally lured into fairyland. Absolutely not. Cassandra Clare fans can go stick their foot in the wall. I don't care. I'm done playing nice with you lot since you don't know how to return the favor. There's also a barely comprehensible map at the start with words that I can't read. It looks like a Xerox of a Xerox. Do kids even know what a Xerox is? It doesn't matter. I'm blaming this on the PDF maker and not the publisher. Next page has, I wish I was kidding, a photocopy of the intro poem. It's so blurry and pixely, I'm not even going to bother to read it. Anyway, let's get to it, shall we? Book 1, Prologue. The narration introduces us to Jude, her identical twin sister Taryn, and their older sister Vivian, aka Vivi. Vivi's eyes and the lightly furrowed points of her ears. Why was my first thought upon reading this not fairy, but rather furry, as in those people who run around and pretend to be cats or wolves? The narration spends about half a page painting an ordinary life, eating fish sticks in front of the telly. Then a mysterious man shows up at the door. He's upset to see their mother. Their mother was apparently once married to this man. This fairy, experience with similar novels, tells me that he was abusive and that it was everything she could do to get away from him. She faked not only her own death, but also Vivi's as well, and now he's here for his hair. Sweetie, you probably should have left the baby behind. They always come looking for them. Leave the baby and run. Anyway, the father shows up and starts swinging an axe around, but the mysterious man is quick to kill him and then his wife. He then looks to the children and basically says that since Jude and Tarn are the children of his wife, he feels like it's his responsibility to care for them now, which, gee, thanks, but that's going to have to be a hard no for me. At this point, I'd launch into chapter 1. However, I'm going to quote literally the entire chapter to you right now. In Fairy, there were no fish sticks, no ketchup, no television. That is literally the entire chapter. Why? Why would you write this? Chapter 2. Now, obviously, we're not going to be following a 7-year-old, but I'm not quite sure how much time has passed. If I had to wager a number, it'll be a decade. Being on the cusp of adulthood always seems to be the magic number in these books. We jump directly into Jude being taken care of by her equivalent of a nursemaid, Tatterfell. She describes the way that Tatterfell helped to give her the sight so that she could actually see the fairies, taught her how to avoid tricks, and basically took care of her. The servants are over fond of telling me how fortunate I am, a bastard daughter of a faithless wife, a human without a drop of fairy blood, to be treated like a true-born child of fairy, that tell Taryn much the same thing. I love how the sister is basically an afterthought. I wonder how much of an afterthought that Taryn is going to be in this. Tatterfell goes on to say that she hopes that some high court man won't set his eyes upon Jude and marry her so that she can stay here. There's no point in arguing, no point in reminding her of my mother's disastrous marriage. There are 2 ways for mortals to become permanent subjects of the court: marrying into it or honing some great skill in metallurgy or lute playing or whatever. Not interested in the first, I have to hope I can be talented enough for the second. I also love how she thinks about how her mother lived and died and has no interest in getting married to some fairy, but doesn't express any sort of interest in actually getting away from all of this. Instead, she's actually hoping to be gifted enough at whatever skill to be chosen, despite the fact that only a few paragraphs above she was bemoaning to the readers that the only reason why she was treated well was because of her stepfather, King Maddock, demanded it. Would you consider Maddock to be her stepfather? I'm not sure that there's a word to describe their relationship. And then, yep, I was right, a 10-year time skip, putting her at 17 years old. These books are nothing if not predictable, at least in regards towards how old the main character is. There, Maddock raised us, me and Vivian and Taryn, out of an obligation of honor, even though Taryn and I are the evidence of mom's betrayal by the customs of Fairy. We're his wife's kids, so we're his problem. This probably would have made way more sense if it was established that the fairies have difficulty conceiving, and Maddock couldn't bring himself to kill a couple of children, even human children, mainly because who would have known that his wife had gone out and had more children? Nobody. That's who. He could have killed them and washed his hands of the entire thing. Okay, so I guess Maddock isn't the king, but a high-ranking general of the king, which, when I stop and think about it, I suppose that it makes sense. After all, kings have sons who are princes, and you can hardly be expected to marry a prince if he's your stepbrother. I mean, some people probably would, but I don't think that this is that kind of a story. It also doesn't sound like Maddox was an awful father. He gave them a good education, not only with academics, but also fighting. He also gave them paternal love, which is surprising considering that he didn't have to do that much either. Taryn comes in and says that she predicts that they're going to have fun. They're going to watch a tournament, but from a distance and hidden. So much for being accepted, I guess. It also seems like Jude is determined to make a name for herself and be allowed to stay. Again, I don't know why, since I personally would be doing everything to get the hell away from there, but we're doing it for the plot, I guess. As the sisters go downstairs, they run into Vivi. She is the epitome of rebellious teenager, so she doesn't have to please her father like Jude and Taryn do. She wears human clothes and often runs off to the human world doing whatever she wants. Jude explains to the readers that when they first got there, the three sisters used to huddle in bed together talking about their life in the human world. But now that Jude and Taryn are older, most of their lived experience is in the fairy world, and Vivi has little interest in any of that, so their relationship is strained and distant now. Downstairs, we're briefly introduced to Maddox's second wife, Oriana, and man, if I didn't have a word to describe the relationship between Jude and Maddox, I really don't have one to describe between Jude and Oriana. As the four of them go outside, Maddox asks where Vivi is. Jude lies and says that she doesn't know. And if you know anything about fairy lore or how these fairy stories tend to go, you'll know that Jude's ability to lie is likely going to become a huge plot point later on. It's basically like a superpower. Be careful tonight, Oriana says. Promise me you will neither eat nor drink nor dance. You may think salt is sufficient protection, but you children are forgetful. Better to go without. As for dancing, once begun, if you mortals will dance yourself to death we don't prevent it. If it's that bad, I don't know why they let them go at all. I say knowing full well that fairies are notoriously terrible parents. Oriana might act like she cares, but she's probably hoping that both human girls will dance themselves to death so that she doesn't have to deal with them anymore. It has always been clear that Oriana puts up with me and Taryn only for Maddox's sake. She seems to think of us as her husband's favorite hounds, poorly trained and likely to turn on our master at any moment. As I was saying... Chapter 3. Fairies are twilight creatures, and I have become one too. We rise when the shadows grow long and head to our beds before the sun rises. So, nocturnal. Jude describes the path one takes in order to get to the fairy hill than the people who are already at this party. I don't mind the weird path that they take, since that's practically a given for fairy stories, but the description of random fairies goes on for too long, especially since I'm certain that none of these people are going to be relevant again. But Jude continues to comment that she understands why Oriana would worry that they'd get swept up in it. How easily that a confused human might fall prey. Jude hops off the horse and then drags her sister to greet the king. As they do so, Jude explains to the readers that King Alfred is the grandson of Mab. And if you've ever read fairy stories before, she's the great cornerstone in a lot of these fairy stories. Except that her mythology started in Romeo and Juliet, mentioned briefly in passing. How that has translated to the great touchstone that she is today, I'll never know, but here we are! Anyway, at this point the narration starts to unravel as it brings literally any sort of momentum to the screeching halt so that it can info dump to us about Alfred's 6 children. Ugh. Can we not? First up is Prince Belkin and his, I'm not kidding, circle of grackles. This feels like the bird that was chosen by somebody that has spent zero time around those thrice blessed birds. I sure hope that Belkin is an obnoxious fellow who eats only trash. Then up is Princess Elowin and her circle of larks. Then Prince Diane with his circle of falcons. Maddox obviously belongs to this circle, seeing as how we know next to nothing about Maddox, and this is the first time these Audubon Society circles have been mentioned. Obviously he belongs there. I mean, duh. However, we stop with the first half of King Alfred's children, for which I'm grateful, except now I'm wondering which of the princes is the titular cruel prince. My money is on the youngest, because that's usually how these things go. After greeting the king and promptly getting lost in the sauce of describing these 3 children, Maddox tells the girls to enjoy themselves. Jude in turn finds some human food to share. As they're eating, Jude scoffs over the idea that Oriana thinks them too stupid to not know the difference between human food and fairy food, as if the fairy food doesn't glow gold. After they finish eating, Jude watches as a girl cuts the purse off from an ogre. The ogre gets angry, and then everybody is distracted by a sparkling fire? Sure, why not? Taryn is watching the dancers. She proposes that they could take turns dancing and pull the other out if they get trapped, but then they don't go and instead watches Princess Elowin dance with some of her larks and listens to the song. Then the 6th prince, Prince Carden, shows up, and I'm not gonna lie, his name will probably be accidentally pronounced as Cardigan at least once a chapter. And did I call it or what? Maybe I'm psychic, or maybe I've read too many fairy romances where the youngest prince was the love interest. How do I know that Cardan is the love interest? Because of the 5 members of the royal family at this party, Cardan was the only one who was given a physical description. He also has 3 friends, Valerian, Narcissa, and Locke, who were all given descriptions as well. At this point, you might as well have a giant neon sign screaming out, "This'll be important later!" Jude openly tells the readers that she's constantly at war with how beautiful that Cardan is versus his super ugly personality. In order to cheer her sister up at the sight of the prince, Taran says that Vivi told her that when she went swimming with some friends, she saw that Cardan had a tail. Jude was mainly put out because she now feels like an outsider in her relationship with Vivi. There's an odd configuration of sisters. There's always one on the outside. Is it though? How hard would it have been to go and tell the story to Jude as well? As the prince and his friends get closer, everybody sinks into their knees to pay the prince the proper amount of respect. And not because he's a nice person, but simply because his title simply demands it, which I think is the worst kind of respect, but whatever. As one of the friends, Valerian, goes to walk past his sisters, he pulls on Jude's hair and says that the 2 of them stand out too much. I feel like this is only setting up the scene for what Cardan himself is going to be like, which, joy! And then, without missing a beat, Cardan then beats up some random partygoer who doesn't bow to him. After punching the boy, Cardan then rips his wings off, which prompts Jude to wonder if they grow back or not. The other partygoers are like, "Yeah, so sad. Anyway," as if watching one of their prince commit acts of violence against members of the court is something that they've seen a lot. But then again, fairies aren't exactly known for their empathy. As Cardan walks past the boy, apparently down with him, I am grateful that Cardan has 5 more brothers and sisters. It's practically guaranteed that he'll never sit on the throne. I don't want to think of him with more power than he has. Our love interest, everybody. So awful that even the female lead can't stop WTFing over how awful he is. Cardan, Valerian, and Narcissa carry on without much thought, but Locke pauses to help the poor boy to his feet, where the boy is grabbed by his friends and taken away. Locke then meets eyes with Jude and winks at her. Taran pulls her sister away, chastising her for simply looking in Locke's direction. Thanks for listening to my book Snark on YouTube. New videos are up every Monday, but stick around because I sometimes drop random videos on other days too. Just as a reminder, even if you can't financially support me, there are other ways to help me out. The first is watching this video as well as all my other videos. It's also important to like and subscribe. Finally, you can share this video with all your friends so that they can help as well. If you're already caught up with all of my videos, you can go to Tumblr for my main book Snarks, always free and updated every morning. Newly added to Patreon is to become a member without paying. You'll get access to the same thing on Tumblr, but on Patreon. Supporters can have access to so many more books starting at $1 a month. Also new is a 1-week free Patreon trial, so be sure to check that out. Special thanks to Dawn and Phoebe for supporting me on Patreon already. If you want to hear your name in my video next week, either support me on Patreon or make a one-time donation. Do you like my snarks so much that you want me to snark your writing? I do that too, but not to worry if you feel like you couldn't take the criticism. I also offer regular book editing as well. You can contact me on any of my social media platforms if you have further questions about my editing services, including pricing options. If you want to read some of the things that I've written, you can purchase my works on Amazon. I have a slew of spicy short stories and 2 full-length novels. I also frequently run flash sales on my stories, and if you don't follow me on any social media, you might want to do so just so you can know when I might be offering things for free. Links for everything will be posted below. I'll see you next week, guys.